What's going on, everyone? My name's Eric, and today we're going to be checking out 5 really awesome Alexi-Laiho signature guitars from the ESP family. Of course, we're going to hear the guitars, you're going to see them, we're going to talk about them in a good amount of detail, but the one thing that I really want to drive home is that all of the guitars that we're going to be checking out are actually very different from each other. Now, even though these guitars are all similar in nature, being a flying V, 6-string, 24 frets, single humbucker, Floyd Rose, you know, all those good things, but from where these guitars started in 2003 to 2005, and from where they are right now, there was a lot of changes, and that is something I want to highlight just to give you an idea of like how these guitars changed over history and all of the really interesting details that you might not even know that are on these Alexi-Laiho guitars. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Now, Alexi didn't always play ESP guitars. He initially started Children of Bodom playing Jackson guitars. He was specifically playing a Jackson Randy Rose guitar, and he played those guitars up until 2002 when those guitars were unfortunately stolen from the Children of Bodom rehearsal spot in Finland. And at that point, the band was getting ready to record their album Hatebreeder. Alexi made a few calls. He tried to get a deal with Jackson going in, but at that time, Jackson and Charvel got bought out by Fender. And when that amalgamation happened, they weren't really able to build guitars quick enough for Alexi's needs. So at this time, they went with ESP guitars, and that was in part to the music store Muslemaima. That music store is in Helsinki, and they had a very influential part of helping out Finnish guitarists and metal bands getting connected with ESP guitars and helping them get like endorsement deals and everything like that. So with all of those pieces in place, ESP was able to make guitars for Children of Bodom for Alexi and Alexander Kuopala at the time, and then the rest is history at this point. All of that information comes directly from the Children of Bodom book. It's a great read for all Children of Bodom fans, especially if you want to learn the full story from start to finish of the band's time. After that time, Alexi was sent a couple guitars, the album was recorded, moved forward a couple years to Are You Dead Yet? And then after that, in around 2006, we get the very first Alexi-Laiho signature ESP guitars. This is where it all started. This is an LTD Alexi-600 series guitar, and this was the more affordable import version of the ESP Custom Shop and standard series that you could get at the time. Now, all the specs and the features are going to be pretty well similar for most of the guitars. I will highlight some of the differences as they come up, but obviously, as we can see here, flying V body, single pickup, Floyd Rose, 24 frets, ebony fingerboard, maple neck, alder body, 6-in-line headstock, and this is pretty much the formula for the Alexi-Laiho guitar. Now, when you are bringing guitars over in North America or just building guitars in North America, you cannot do a carbon copy of them because that's going to infringe on trademark regulations. So even though this guitar does look like the Jackson Randy Rhodes here, this bottom horn here was extended so it can actually be sold in North America and not like infringe on any trademarks or anything like that. Another thing as well, when you get up close to the fingerboard, you're going to notice that upper access cutaway. You kind of have a bit of a hard time playing up on those higher frets right here. That cutaway starts around the 19th fret and just kind of stops there. So if you want to get up to the 24th fret, you really have to position your hand like in the classical position, like what some classical guitar players would have to do if they're trying to go past the 12th fret on their guitar here. So you kind of have to do the same thing like that, which is a little uncomfortable. That's also very similar to how the Jackson Randy Rhodes guitars are. We got an EMG HZ H4 pickup, which came in the North American models. Alexi didn't really use this one in the studio. He used the EMG HZ H2, and he used the ESP MM04, which is a clone of the Jackson JE 1000 preamp that was in his Jackson guitars. Very interesting that these guitars didn't have those kinds of configurations, given they were supposed to be built to how Alexi actually wanted them. Flipping this over, we don't have any of the pinstriping or the bevels on the back. Some of Alexi's guitars actually had that as well, which is kind of interesting. Painted neck as well. A lot of Alexi's guitars also had an unfinished neck, which is kind of interesting. At the back down here, it might be a little hard to see. You do have a tummy cut, so when you are playing this guitar, this extra cutout here is actually going to sit against your body a little nicer. You can get the guitar a little bit closer. Going to feel a little bit comfier when you are playing it, just to make the whole experience much easier. ESP also has another sub-brand called Edwards, and they were releasing Alexi-Laiho guitars at the time, and those are exclusively sold to the Japanese market. They were pretty much built the exact same way with the extended horn for some of the models. Some of them actually had the shorter horn as well. Same electronics, same woods and everything like that. Couple different color schemes as well. Some of them also had some unfinished necks, which was very interesting. So 2 different parts of the world, 2 different guitars entirely, but also sharing the very same essence of Alexi-Laiho. Let's plug this one in and let's hear how it sounds. wasn't long after those initial models where Alexi was touring with them very extensively before he went back to the drawing board. And I'm going to show that in this next one here. This is a 2008 ESP LTD 200 series that's been heavily modified. It doesn't look like this from the factory. There's been a ton of upgrades to it. I have a full video that'll walk through everything that I've done to this guitar and how it started out life. This is the entry-level Alexi Laiho guitar, so if you couldn't afford the upper-end 600 series or the ESP standard and custom model, the hardware was not so great on them. We would then have a bolt-on neck construction here by comparison to the set necks and the neck-through designs on the more expensive guitars. Very interesting on this guitar is that there is a light satin finish and it's like not painted as well. Alexi's guitars pretty much didn't have a painted neck. Very interesting that the 200 models had an unfinished neck, whereas the 600 and some of the ESP custom shop ones that were sold in North America from those early ones had all painted necks. Again, very interesting. We got the belly cut on this guitar, again, making the guitar very nice to play against your body when you're standing or sitting. Another interesting point on the guitar, the whole back of this guitar outside of this belly cut area is entirely flat. No beveling or anything like that. There is going to be a little bit of beveling on the top here. Might be a little hard to see right there. Yeah, right on the edges, right where my finger is, you can see there's a bit of beveling, but it's interesting that didn't continue onto the back. It's going to be the same for all the other guitars as well in terms of the beveling on the front. But this guitar here, being a 2008 model, has this upper access moved down to the 21st fret, and that last guitar, I would have to be up here positioning my hand in like an awkward way to play these higher frets here, but look at this, way better, way easier to play. I don't really have to position my hand in an awkward way or like in the traditional classical position to get up to the 24th fret. And this guitar is just much easier to play in the soloing position up here by comparison to those earlier ones, but we gotta acknowledge where these guitars started from. Both are awesome, just a little bit of updates along the way just to make them much easier for Alexi and for you to play. So let's plug this in, let's hear how it sounds. Now continuing on from 2008 onwards, there were so many different finishes of the Alexi Laiho signature line that was available in North America and for the most part around the world. The Edwards guitars that are in Japan only are basically still being produced, and you can get any finish you would like. We have the Blackie, we have the Pinky, we have the Scythe, and we have the Hexed and the Ripped models, and we also have the Greenie. This one was a little bit of an interesting one for my own personal taste, especially with this graphic right here. It was the only one that had a graphic right above that bridge pickup, so take that for what you will. But the Greenie and all of those other LTD models that I mentioned, they pretty much kept the formula going for a very long time. As you can see, we have the longer horn still on the side. We actually have the updated pickup. This is the EMG HZ H2. It just comes as it is, passive pickup, no preamp or anything like that. Again, a bit of an interesting take since Alexi always used an onboard guitar preamp with his passive pickups just to get his Children of Bodom sound. We had some upgraded components here, Floyd Rose bridge, flipping the guitar over. We then have an unfinished neck just like Alexi had on all of his guitars. And a very interesting thing is that this guitar actually does not have the belly cut, whereas those other earlier Alexi Laiho guitars that were in production had the belly cut. It feels good, don't get me wrong, it's just those belly cuts just make the guitar a little bit more comfier to play, especially for a long period of time. We still have the upper access cut around the 21st fret. That still feels really great, and just with how these guitars are built, they're super solid, they feel great. It would have been nice to see them with some preamps and with some additional electronics that Alexi was actually using on his guitars. Is what it is, especially for the middle of the road ones. The ESP custom shop and standard models actually had the onboard preamps, but otherwise, like these LTD 600 guitars, super solid. They're all built using the same woods and the same hardware for the most part, but yeah, can't go wrong with them. Sounds great. Let's plug it in. Let's hear it. gonna get to my favorite Alexi guitar. This one's from a brand that I recommend to everyone who's looking for a very high quality Alexi Laiho guitar that's pretty much spec'd exactly as Alexi's personal guitars. This is my Edwards Pinky guitar, and this guitar is essentially the exact same as Alexi's ESP custom shop Pinky and some of the other custom shop guitars that he had, except it's at a much more affordable price. So you're getting a lot of these high-end components and a lot of these high-end features, but you're getting it for a fraction of the price. Edwards guitars are made in Japan. They're sold exclusively in Japan. They're also sold in Helsinki, Finland at Mulsumaima, that music store that got the relationship between ESP and Children of Bodom going. And yeah, this thing is basically the best version of the Alexi guitars if you are on a budget and you want something that's absolutely amazing. Sure, this is expensive at the end of the day, but you're not going to be paying ESP custom shop or ESP standard prices for a hand-built guitar in Japan that is absolutely sweet. This one's awesome. It has the EMG HZ H2, has the ESP MMO4 preamp. It's the only guitar in this price range that has the ESP MMO4 for that Children of Bodom tones. All the other Alexi-600 series guitars are basically the same price as this, but they don't have the preamp and they don't have a couple other bells and whistles. This guitar also has scalloped frets, which makes playing at the higher frets or whatever frets are scalloped on your guitar much easier to play. You barely have to press the string down to make the note sound. And this just feels so great for playing leads, and Alexi had that on his guitars. None of those LTD guitars, and I think some of those earlier ESP guitars, never had scalloped frets as well, even though Alexi had them on all of his guitars. Another cool thing about this, we have the shorter horn. Since these are only for the Japanese market and not to be sold outside of there and outside of the one music store in Finland, ESP can kind of get away with that Randy Rhoads shape. Different story if this is going to be sold into a music store in North America. Going up here, we also have that upper access cutaway, same thing at the 21st fret, now with the scallop frets. Feels amazing. It's one of the best guitars I have in my collection for playing leads. Feels so good, very comfy for a flying V. Unfinished neck, just like Alexi had on his custom shop guitars. This one as well doesn't have the belly cut, very akin to those early Jackson Randy Rhoads guitars that Alexi was so familiar with. We also have a battery compartment here because that preamp does run on a 9-volt battery, so that's something you would have to route into your guitar or just throw in the electronics cavity if you are upgrading your 600 series. Something else that's interesting about these guitars that don't have the belly cuts, so we're talking the Edwards, the later LTDs, and the ESP standards, and possibly some of the custom shop ones. Actually, all of these horns on the back here, they're all going to be beveled from each other, which is something I didn't really know until making this video. Can't remember the last time I played a Jackson Randy Rhoads to see if they are the exact same or not, but very interesting design choice as well. And this beveling goes all the way around from the bottom of the horns here, back here and there, all the way right up to where the pinstripes stop. Very interesting, and something that you're not going to notice. Doesn't really affect the playing too much, makes the guitar maybe a little comfier in some ways. I don't really think it's a make or break, but again, a very interesting design choice that you might have not known on these guitars. By comparison to the ESP LTD 600 series and for what they're going for now, this is always what I'm going to recommend unless you want the hexed and the ripped finish or you want the longer horn or something like that. And I'm always going to recommend this because they're just done up from the factory as Alexi would have had on his guitars. Except they have a different name on the headstock, maybe different tuners, and otherwise that's literally what Alexi would have played. And these things come set up to Alexi Laiho's preferred like action and string gauges and everything right from the factory. Like, hard to go wrong with it. It's one of my favorite guitars, and I definitely would love to have another Edwards guitar with a different paint scheme. Let's plug it in, let's hear how it sounds. Alright, now here is the last guitar that we're going to be checking out today. This is an E-II ESP Standard Ripped series guitar, also made in Japan. This one also has the traditional Randy Rhoads shape. We got the short horn down here. This one is also very interesting because it's the only Alexi Laiho guitar to have a neck pickup. Otherwise, all the other ESP Alexi Laiho guitars are just going to have the single EMG pickup in the bridge. Given this is the upper echelon model before you get to the custom shop series, you're going to have the ESP MMO4 preamp. You're going to have a recessed toggle switch on here, which is very cool. I don't believe the LTD version of this guitar has it. The LTD model of this guitar also has the longer horn. Very interesting that the ESP or the E-II Standard has the shorter horn, especially because this guitar was bought and sold in North America brand new. So I don't know how this one kind of made it over here with the shorter horn, but is what it is. I've also played the ESP Custom Shop version of this guitar, and that particular guitar also had the longer horn. I'm going to find a picture of it and throw it on here as well. Very interesting that two of the exact same guitars from the exact same country of origin are built differently from each other. Not too sure why, but again, very interesting guitar, very cool as well. This guitar also has the same appointments as the Edwards guitar, given they are both built in Japan. We got scalloped frets from the 21st to the 24th, the upper axis cutaway on the 21st fret as well. That has stayed the same since 2008. Soloing and playing leads up here, again, will always feel so good. Unpainted set neck, just like Alexi would have had. Locking tuners, not too sure if Alexi's personal guitars would have had them, but very interesting touch, and it's also a nice feature to have on your guitar. Original Floyd Rose that Alexi would have played as well, ebony fingerboard. This one also has lumen lay side dots, which means that they're going to glow in the dark, which is going to help you play on stage much easier, especially if your stage is pretty dark. Not sure if Alexi's guitar had these features, but it's a really nice feature that should come on all guitars, in my humble opinion. One other cool thing about these made in Japan Alexi Laiho guitars is that they are not even routed for a back cover for the Floyd Rose. I'm going to get a close-up of them, but there are no screw holes so you can put a back cover on them. This is literally how they come from factory. Pretty sure Alexi's guitars were like this for the most part. There might have been a couple ones that actually had back covers on them, but this is very different by comparison to some of those other ESP Standard models and the other LTD guitars that were sold in North America. This one, again, like some of those LTDs and the Edwards models, no belly cut as well. So I'm not too sure why those changed throughout the years. If you know and you work at ESP, let us know down below. This one also comes set up to Alexi's preferred string height, just as the Edwards model does. Not too sure about the LTDs, but I know the guitars that are made in Japan will come up like that. These ones aren't being produced anymore, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the rest of the ESP LTD Alexi Laiho line. We just have to see. Very cool guitars, very privileged to have a couple of these, and very privileged just to show them all to you and just like give you a run through of like how these guitars changed, how they're similar, and yeah, again, just showing really cool Alexi Laiho guitars. Let's plug this last one in here and let's get out of here. So that's going to do it for the video. I wanted to do this and just give you an overview of like how these guitars changed, what's different, what's similar, things to look for on the guitars. And if you are looking for one of those Alexi Laiho signature guitars, you really can't go wrong any other way. I'm going to link to all the videos for these guitars individually so you can learn more about them. In my opinion, these Edwards guitars are going to be the best bang for your buck if you want a brand new Alexi Laiho guitar. If you want to save some money and you're cool with getting a used guitar, doing your own setup, maybe living with a couple dings or imperfections on those used guitars, used market's going to be great as well, especially if you want a certain finish that is not offered. The only finishes that are currently offered in the Alexi Laiho lines in the North America models are the Hexed and the Ripped models and the all blacked out 200 series, which is a bolt-on guitar, but those 200 series are going to need a lot of work. All depends on what your budget is. You don't need to have the custom shop ESP Standard. If you want to have that, great, but if you are the average player who is saving up lots of money and wants to make one big guitar purchase of the year and it just so happens to be an Alexi Laiho guitar, Edwards is going to be my go-to. But at the end of the day, your choice. Can't go wrong with any of them, especially if you just want to carry Alexi's legacy. That's going to do it for today's video. Let me know all thoughts and opinions down below, especially if you learned something new and if you have a favorite Alexi guitar. I love reading the comments and love engaging with y'all. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Got tons more Children of Bodom videos, Alexi, Laiho, other guitar-related topics as well that are on the channel. And if you are a returning subscriber, make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss a single video that I upload. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.